when the world around us is chaotic, we need something to hold us steady. Now, I know I had a friend who used to just clean house, literally could eat off her floors when things were crazy in her lives. So some of us do that, some of us cook, some of us go out to the garage or the workshop and tinker. We do anything to give us a sense of normalcy and calm. We do anything to feel like our life is in control. But in essence, those things are really distractions. Deep down, our spirits and our souls still feel unease. So we need reassurance, we need direction, we ultimately need hope that something is going to change, that something is going to be different. And in this case, we need Job, or at least Job's example of faith. We remember Job, the poor guy who lost his whole family, his farm, and most of his friends, and even those friends he does have keep challenging him and telling him, well, you must have done something wrong, you must have lost your faith, God is not going to stand by you. But Job won't listen to that. He knows that in the end he will stand with God. And this we know from the words that were made famous in Handel's Messiah. I know that my Redeemer lives, and in the end he will stand on the earth. So Job, despite all the pressure to the contrary, holds on tightly to his faith. For him, God is his rock in the storm. Well, God can be our rock as well. Because that's what Jesus believed, it's what Jesus taught. And those who followed Jesus believed him so deeply that they shared it with others. And some of those began to go on and found churches. Churches that welcomed others with nurture and the faith. But we also know that faith always meets opposition. Like the church in Thessaloniki, early Christians found themselves under the thumb of Roman rule. And at the time of that letter, and even as we read it today, anxiety and fear were in the Christian community then, because they were being persecuted. And when one is persecuted for one's faith, life is hard. So it's easy to want to listen to other voices or other ideals, tempting them away with ways different than the way of Christ. Now, I wanted to read the first part of that letter. From Thessalonians, because it gives us a hint as to what was going on in their world that day. As to the coming of our Lord Jesus Christ and our being gathered together in him, we beg you, brothers and sisters, don't be quickly shaken in mind, or don't be alarmed, either by the Spirit or by word or by letter, as though from us, to the effect that the day of the Lord is already here. Let no one deceive you in any way. Some people were being alarmist, and they were trying to lead this group of followers away. Now, as we know, world events repeat themselves time and time again. And that's why the Bible is always timely, because the stories therein are for us in times of abundance and joy. We think of all the celebratory songs that come out of the Bible, but the Bible's here for us in times of anxiety and stress as well. I look around and I can just feel the anxiety and the stress here and everywhere I go. And life can do that to us. But then you just add in stories from some, not all, of the news media, and so much of it is upsetting. and we find ourselves kind of near a breaking point, maybe even to boiling over. And that's a time to take a deep breath and to remember Job. It's time to remember the lessons in the early church. They help us in discerning what we need for our day. In 2 Thessalonians, we find support and guidance, and even a bit of a warning. And this is sort of a modern translation, but it says that all we are bombarded with is a distraction from the truth and the reality of what God has done and what God is doing and what God will do. The writer doesn't point to any distinct event or person, but verse 4 paints a picture of an authority figure that could be from any generation of history, who seemingly despises all other authority except his own. Now we can fill in the blanks with world leaders from Nero to Genghis Khan to Hitler and Bin Laden. But the crux of the matter is we're told to watch out for things that are going to lead us astray, things that are going to mislead our faith. And ultimately, the writer encourages us to hold on to the one that we put our faith in. We are encouraged to put our faith in action so that we live as reminders to others that God is still working in this world, that God's work isn't complete yet, and that God hasn't left us. We're also encouraged to call out and share the good news. And we say that a lot in church. Share the good news. But what exactly is the good news? And as I thought about it, I learned something that I didn't really ever know. That in that first century of the church, there was more than one version of good news. Because the good news was being spread by the Roman Empire. It's good news we're here, they would say. And it was focused entirely on the emperor and all the emperor's exploits. But then there was also the gospel, which means good news. The good news of Jesus Christ. And the heart of that good news is that in the midst of everything, God's love and mercy will prevail. So today we consider our lives. We can also consider the lives of those who are under persecution by that early church and the fact that they held on to their faith so that we still have church today. We consider the life of Christ, all that he did and all that he gave up for us. And we can consider the life of Job. And we can realize that maybe we don't have it as badly as Job, but we are like him. Job wants the world to make sense. That's why he keeps crying out to God, and that's what we're supposed to do too. Job wants people, himself in particular, to get what they deserve, and he assumes that it is God's responsibility to make that justice happen. So, Job pleads, and strangely and wonderfully, in the end, God shows up. God shows up for Job. God shows up for Jesus. And God shows up for us, whatever we face. So today we are encouraged, we are invited, we are challenged to hold on to our faith. That we are supposed to keep sharing the good news, that there is an extravagant welcome for us when we follow Jesus. And that we all have a place as God's children. And that we all have a place at the table. So hold on to your faith.